Welcome back, everybody, to Webheads Comic Book Club, episode 4, where today we're going to be tackling Amazing Spider-Man Annual 1, as well as issue 16 through 19. I'm JP, with my very sickly friend,
DA. In case you can't tell from my attire, if you are watching on YouTube, I am slightly under the weather today. But we couldn't exactly reschedule this because this episode is supposed to go up tomorrow, so the show must go on. We are here.
He's fighting through it.
I'm fighting through it. I am probably COVID, haven't tested or anything like that, but I'm doing fine. Don't worry about me. I'm just under the weather. But so if I sound a little off, if I seem a little low energy, that's why.
No, I'll have to just carry, I guess.
You always do.
I can barely speak. I can barely speak in these episodes, my guy.
But we've made it to episode 4. If you're wondering where we were last week, we took a week off for the holidays.
Yep.
We were just busy with Christmas and New Year's and all of that. Little did I know I would have COVID the next week, but, you know, it works out that way. So
Happened to a lot of people.
Yeah, seems like everyone's got it right now.
Yeah.
I kind of... I was going to say, I kind of blame myself because I never got my booster shot, but go get vaccinated, people.
Wow.
Personal opinion.
I should have put my robe on, too. It's right over there. But you know what? Maybe when I'm sick next week.
Maybe.
I'm planning on getting sick next week.
Well, so. I think you're going to get it from me, you know.
Well, yeah, we're talking right now.
Yeah, I think I got it from, anyway, another friend of ours who has COVID right now.
Oh, no.
Yeah, let's just, how was your New Year's? It's 2022, first episode of the new year.
I was quarantined because I had contact with someone that had COVID, so
it
just
was
kind of
you.
spent it. Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, you did to me.
Through Discord, Snapchatted him, and then all of a sudden he was done for.
Yeah.
No, but I spent it with my parents. It was just me, my parents, my dog, my bird, my snake, myself.
Got a whole zoo over there.
Yep.
We did
I actually watched the end of Jaws and drank some of those like Jaws beers. I don't know if you saw my. If anybody who wants to see it, Instagram story.
Probably not there anymore, but
yeah, it's not there anymore. The beer that Quint crushes, they came out with a limited edition version of that. They're over there, but I'm not gonna get up and show you.
Mm-hmm.
So I drank some of those. I watched the end of Jaws.
Did you like time it to do something at midnight or?
No, actually, I didn't finish it at midnight. I almost finished it at midnight now because, like I said, I spent it with my parents, so I kind of like went in the room that they were in and we celebrated, ball dropping and whatnot. But what about you? I know you had a little bit more exciting of a time.
Well, we had a New Year's party, but it was like 4 people because coronavirus. Clearly that worked out well. But we did small group, had some drinks, played some games, and that was why it was kind of a terrible time to get sick because I woke up the next day hungover as heck. So I just thought I felt terrible because I was hungover, but then by the end of the day I realized that no, I was just sick, and then I woke up today more sick. So kind of the world's longest hangover. Really starting 2022 off strong. But
I've actually been feeling pretty good. Other than, I'm in a great mood. I'm a man on a mission this year. Let's see what happens.
Oh yeah, lots of episodes of Webheads ahead.
Of course. Speaking of which, let's get into the books.
We will. Also, I'm gonna apologize in advance if I'm like to the listeners if I'm like clearing my voice the whole time. You know why? It's gonna happen.
You know what it is.
We know what it is, but so first one would be Amazing Spider-Man 16.
Not in my omnibus.
Well, I looked at the published dates, and unless the published dates are wrong, I'm pretty sure 16 came out first. But you know what? We'll start with Annual 1.
No, if the published dates, you get the published dates.
Let's see.
I'm not gonna fight you on it.
Marvel Unlimited says Amazing Spider-Man 16 came out September 10th, 1964. Annual 1 came out October 1st. So they're pretty close to each other. I read 16 first, so.
I read 6 first, just because, like I said, I looked at the omnibus and like that was first. I just read it that way.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter too much, but
it doesn't.
Diving into 16, we're gonna skip the summary and just dive right into it. So, freaking Daredevil is in this comic book.
As I mentioned in the last episode, Daredevil is my second favorite superhero, but it is mostly because of the Netflix show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even gonna try to like say it's not. So this was actually my first time that I can remember really sitting down and reading a comic with Daredevil in it, and I liked it. It was very enjoyable. It's before he gets his red suit, so it's a very early appearance of Daredevil.
Yeah, like what? First 8?
It would be the first 6, yeah.
Well, he had 6, yeah. So with this would be something.
7 is when he got the red suit, like Daredevil 7.
Yes,
I think he got the
that,
red suit.
that
So
is right.
it'd be somewhere between 1 and 7. So start him off. This is an action-packed issue. There's really not a lot going on outside of all the action that happens. But pretty much we see Matt Murdock, Daredevil, and Spider-Man first interact.
He's a real redhead.
He's very redheaded.
That surprised me. I did not realize that he was such a redhead.
I bet it was the whole like Daredevil thing.
He's kind of like ginger, you know?
No, he's fully ginger.
One thing I noticed reading these 5 issues, and I mean maybe this is like iffy to talk about, but these comics came out in the 1960s, and I've noticed every single character, whether it's a person on the street, person in the background, person at a party, person at the school, is white.
Yeah,
I noticed that, and now I can't unsee it. Now that I've noticed it,
that's actually so true that there was a black cop in one of these, and I was like, oh, that's like this is new.
I think that was what made me notice it. Is he showed up, and I was just like, wait a second, like.
Exactly. I thought the same thing. I was like, damn, there's really just not much representation of anybody else other than white people.
Which I mean, it's the 60s. I mean, that's kind of. I don't think it's inherently necessarily like intentional racism, but it's just kind of like a byproduct of the time. So that's obviously one thing that doesn't hold up in modern day.
Right.
But unless, who knows? I've never been to New York in the 60s, so maybe it was all white people walking around. I don't know.
I've never been either, man.
Yeah. We'll go. We'll check it out.
But
Spider-Man beats up some robbers right in front of Matt Murdock. I love how, and this happens kind of later in the issue, but I'm going to comment on it now. He's like, oh, here's this blind guy. And then later in the issue, he sees him again. He's like, there's that same blind guy. He's setting off my spider sense. And then when Daredevil comes in, he's like, how did he not get hypnotized? He must have had to have been blind.
Yeah, I was like, are you...
And it's like, it's right there in front of you, bro. Like, I think you could figure this out.
Right, not even like, okay, like obviously it's a comic book. He's not going to be like, oh, he must be Daredevil because that's going to defeat the purpose of secret identities and stuff like that. So okay,
but then why write that dialogue though?
Right, exactly. Why write that and just make him look so stupid?
Yeah, I'm like, come on, bro. Like you can figure this out.
I don't know.
But I love the old school Daredevil with the cane, just
I think that's
swinging
cool.
around.
I like the yellow suit. I don't know why they changed it to red. I bet it's a Hulk thing with inking and stuff like that.
Maybe.
I can guarantee you.
Maybe people just didn't like it as much.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they just didn't like it.
It's rumored they're going to be doing the yellow suit in She-Hulk.
It's pretty sick.
In the Disney Plus series, they're saying Daredevil's going to be in it, and he might have a yellow suit. So
that'd be pretty cool, man.
Might be weird though, because Charlie Cox's Daredevil is such a dark character, so it'd be weird to see him in like a colorful spandex.
It might be like a mustard yellow, like a brown mustard, you know.
That'd be ugly. But let's see.
The Ringmaster. I don't know how I feel about the Ringmaster in this book. So I guess he's a ringmaster of a circus, and he can use his hat to hypnotize people.
Yeah, and he apparently was from the Hulk.
Yes, he's from the Hulk. Issue was it 3 or something like that? I think it said issue 3.
Yep.
Now discontinued. Very sad.
Mm-hmm. It got recontinued. So.
Exactly. So the big plan for the Ringmaster here and his whole circus is to say there's going to be a circus, say Spider-Man's going to be there, attract a bunch of people, hypnotize them, then rob them.
Yes.
And by the time they are unhypnotized, they'll not know a thing, they won't remember anything, and they'll think they just got all pickpocketed. So that is the master plan going on in this issue. And obviously, Daredevil and Spider-Man are going to foil it. But what's interesting about it is that at some point in this book, Spider-Man actually took a back seat, and Daredevil took up the main role of hero in this book, because Spider-Man gets hypnotized by the Ringmaster.
They actually fight each other.
And Daredevil and Spider-Man fight, right. And that's pretty cool.
It's nice to see. Well, yeah, it spotlights Daredevil a little bit. Obviously, they're trying to sell that new book. I mean, they were always using Spider-Man to sell that. He was on issue 1.
Right. Issue 1, Electro, issue 2.
Yeah. So they spotlighted him in Spider-Man just to give him some more exposure. I do like how Daredevil respects Spider-Man so much, because a lot of the other heroes are like, "What's this punk ass kid?" You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Daredevil's like, "Oh, this guy actually is not bad. You know, he's doing okay."
I do love going back, when when Spider-Man was stopping the robbers and Daredevil was sensing everything. He was like, he must have been 17, 5'10". That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they kind of dive into it as I can sense because his pulse is lower than his heartbeat or whatever. He's upside down. It's like, oh, okay.
Now, obviously, like I said, I don't know about the Ringmaster. You know, he's going to be a one-off villain for the most part. I think in Spider-Man, I don't know if he really gets him ever
know
again.
if he ever comes back.
But it is cool, I guess. He hypnotizes people. I don't think you really see that much. He obviously was in a couple different, like I said, he was in Hulk. I'm sure he was in after this, a couple different magazines as well.
Mm-hmm.
But
I do love how user friendly the top hat is. Like Daredevil picks it up, and he's immediately like, I know how to use this thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course. You just say what you want, and then if you're holding the hat, then perfect.
Magic hat, you know?
It's a magic hat, magic top hat.
The other thing I really noticed in this issue, really these 5 in this episode, we're really starting to get the quippy Spider-Man. Like the funny, like genuinely funny, like sarcastic, smartass Spider-Man.
Like, he seems like he's having fun, and like everybody he's fighting is just under, like, a level under him.
Cocky,
like, he's actually he's stronger than even most villains he faces at this point. And again, he's facing a lot of villains like for the second time, so that makes sense. But it looked like in this whole issue, like it was a walk in the park, other than getting hypnotized. But I mean, what are you gonna do about that?
Yeah, I just love his like he's punches like 3 of the goons, and he's like, "Don't be greedy, boys. Only one punch to a customer." Or he has the big strong man, and he's like, "Glad to see you've been eating your Wheaties, big boy." Like he's just so like he would get under your skin.
A 500-pound barbell he just throws at some random guy, and he's the random guy just picks up and like hurls, that's impressive. He should be a villain. He's that strong.
Yeah.
It's cool scenery with the circus to see Spider-Man obviously, jumping and swinging around on trapezes and stuff.
I have noticed Steve Ditko's art has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, and I think it's the more popular this book becomes, and it makes sense. It's just
the more effort, the more practice.
The more effort he's gonna put in, yeah.
Because I've noted, like, when Spider-Man's starting to crawl on walls, now he actually looks good. He doesn't look weird like he did in his early appearances.
He actually looks really, really cool, especially, I think it's page 20 it says on this. Mm-hmm. Like the very last panel where Spider-Man's looking at, the guy, like, he just looks cool.
Yeah.
Like, he looks good. He's drawn well.
He's got the sassy on the panel up above. He's got his sassy hand on his hip.
Oh, yeah, he's very sassy. He's a muscular guy, too, now. He looks like he's getting more muscular in his drawings as well. Under the suit.
Beefy. And he's got the blue. Red and blue. That's been for a while, but...
Yeah, it's totally red and blue now, which is nice.
But, is that pretty much the end? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the end. It's just kind of a small crossover between the two, and honestly, like, if I was reading this back in the 60s, I would probably go check Daredevil out.
Yes, I would. Which is going to be interesting to talk about when we go to Annual 1, because I have some gripes about the way they try to...
That whole thing is an advertisement for Marvel.
Right, exactly. Well, we should say for anybody that hasn't read it. So, right, his plan is to do what I said, to hypnotize everybody and rob them. What ends up happening is Spider-Man gets hypnotized, Daredevil fights him, unhypnotizes him, then rounds up the what's his name? Ringmaster.
Yeah.
And then his goons unhypnotizes everybody, and they think they saw the show of their life, and everybody goes home.
Yeah, no one knew that he saved it. That's what you're noticing is Spider-Man is never getting recognition for his victories, and that's kind of a theme we'll see going forward.
Right.
Because he's a guy who's down on his luck. He's a guy with problems.
He's the original down on his luck kid or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not the right sentence, but it's close enough.
Something like that. But where would you rate scale of 10? How do you feel about this one?
So it was the second book I read. It was fun. I mean, it was cool. And it was to Daredevil again, many times with Spider-Man. Ringmaster was cool. It was a cool setting. How would I rate it? I like a 6.
I would agree, yeah. It's a cool, like, I would really like to own this issue because it's just a really cool cover.
Yes.
It's a cool early Daredevil appearance. Reading-wise, I mean, the story is pretty middle tier. It's not anything crazy. It doesn't really progress the overarching story too much. It's kind of just a one-off, which what I really liked about a lot of these issues is they really progressed the overall story.
Right, and that's what I mentioned. It's mostly like an action-packed issue. That's what it is.
Yep.
It's Daredevil and Spider-Man fighting the ringleader or the ringmaster. There's not too much with Aunt May or Betty Brant or anybody like that. That was a little bit, but
Not much.
not as much as the issues we're going to talk about.
They dive into it for the rest of this episode, but
Exactly. Yeah.
before we dive into those, the next comic book in the Spider-Man mythos is Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1, the famous first appearance of the Sinister Six.
So, as we always do as collectors, we have to show the book if we have the book.
I do not.
I do. It's got no cover.
But how'd you get it?
So, me and my friend DA here used to, obviously, we still collect comic books. Back in the day, a couple years ago, we used to get a lot of, high-end books from a guy named Lee Kirby Dicko Comics. He still does videos here on YouTube, if you're watching YouTube. But we used to do a lot of deals with him.
Shout
right?
out to homie.
And he used to give us little extras if we bought a big book. And I don't remember if this came with, the 2 I got, when I bought the 2 from him or what. But in a book that I had bought from him, he added this for free.
He really hooked it up. I mean, if you don't, go check out Lee Kirby Dicko Comics on YouTube. I haven't talked to that man in a while, but he really, really, really is such a nice guy, and he totally hooked us up back in the day.
Right. Last time I talked to him, the Broncos won the Super Bowl.
It was, it was years and years and years. I've been meaning to actually reach, so, John, if you see this,
right,
hit me up. But
I still have the little note that he put in the sleeve that it was in at the time, saying it's no cover, but it's a great reader copy, and that's what I did. I read it today.
Yeah. It's still cool to have,
Well, no, and I was like, well, I'm interested. Obviously, these books are worth so much. I'm interested in what a cover list would be worth. I don't plan on selling it, but I'm interested in it. I was like, let me just look on eBay. There's no way there's gonna be a coverless one for sale. There was. Buy it now. $500.
Yeah, that man hooked you up.
Yeah, I gotta send it back to him and be like, listen, I read it. I can't take this money away from you, bro.
Yeah. Well, something tells me he's doing fine. I don't know if
if
the viewers listening have seen his collection. I think he's doing just fine.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you. Sorry, Reagan refilled my water.
I didn't do anything.
Trying to stay hydrated.
Exactly.
But this issue is, as we mentioned a second ago, it's basically one giant advertisement for Marvel's whole line of comics, which is fine. I mean, it's interesting. It takes away from the story a little bit.
It takes away from the story a little bit. It's fine, but they, in a lot of different ways, they didn't do it very well. The first one was Thor's, and page 3.
Just flies past, yeah.
He just flies past, and he flies past. He's like, "Whoa, it's Thor!" And then it's like Thor also appears in this magazine. They did it well, I think, with who was it?
Doctor Strange was pretty good.
Doctor Strange, yeah, Doctor Strange, where they actually showed what he's about a little bit.
I mean, Thor was flying with the hammer,
Right, but it's
My biggest thing that I liked about it is it shows obviously what Marvel is known for, which is a connected universe. And I feel like this reminds everybody, hey, it's not just Spider-Man. Thor's also flying around New York. Doctor Strange is also around New York. Iron Man is there. All these characters, it just kind of reminds you that there's a world beyond Spider-Man. Because if you were, a brand new comic... this was before comic books were what they are today.
Right, yeah.
So back in the day, some person could pick one up off the stands for their kid, and their kid would have no clue what the heck a Marvel is.
They'd be like, where's Superman?
Yeah, and then they'll read this and be like, oh, there's other characters in the universe, and that I think that if they did this today, it would be corny as crap. But doing it back in the 60s, I think it works. But anyway, working through the book. So obviously the theme of this book is Doc Ock breaks out of prison and assembles 6 of Spider-Man's greatest villains to team up. Sandman, Kraven, Mysterio, Electro, Vulture, and Doc Ock, the OG Sinister Six.
Right, now I have to ask you if you had any expectations going into this, and if you've read it before.
I had not read it before.
Okay, did you have any grand expectations of the first meeting of the Sinister Six?
I thought they would actually team up.
Right, yeah.
Seems like a terrible plan. They're like, hey, we all lost to him one-on-one, so let's all fight him one-on-one in sequence rather than... And Spider-Man even says in the comic, he's like, wow, if they would have teamed up on me, I would have been screwed.
Your Doc Ock is not very smart in this one.
Yeah. He's crazy.
Green Goblin already tried with the team up.
How'd that work out for him?
Not very well.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
But Thor flies through. I love Thor. I like collecting Thor comic books. I don't have as much as I do Spider-Man, but it was cool to see him. I love the old 60s Thor with the wings on the helmet, and he's just kind of corny. But
It's interesting to see that they got the arms off the Doctor Octopus, but he still controls them, so it can now be like a free form thing. His arms,
Yeah, like a mental link.
right? You can add that to his arsenal because that could definitely come in handy, and it did, helping him escape from prison.
Yeah.
That's how Doc Ock gets out of prison. Arms are off of him. They're in like an evidence locker, I guess, and he just controls them to get him out.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really explain how the rest of them got out, because most of them were in prison, if I'm not mistaken.
I think Doc Ock broke. I don't know. You
Well,
just kind of assume they broke out at some point, because literally after this issue, they get arrested, and then I think like 2 issues later, it like shows a bunch of villains, and like they're all out again.
Yeah, it might just. I mean, Electro, I guess, got out in issue 2 of Daredevil.
Oh yeah.
So, because that's I know that was Electro's second appearance, like ever. I think, pretty sure, it was Daredevil 2. So I guess that maybe that happens there. Kraven wasn't arrested, right? Or was he? I don't remember.
He was not. Mysterio was.
Mysterio was. Sandman was. Then Vulture was not. I don't think.
He was.
He was. Oh
Yeah.
damn. All right.
But you just kind of assume they get out at some point. I mean, I don't think it matters too much. But now we had said we were going to do this. Well, first of all, I want to comment on Spider-Man further harassing JJ, as always. He is not helping his case.
No.
He steals his
No.
newspaper and then reads it outside.
Yes,
Which, to be fair, I would probably do the
Yes.
same thing.
Right. Yes.
You know.
Whatever. Screw him.
Antagonize him a little bit. But we had said we were going to do this. Go ahead and say what you were saying, and then I'll...
Completely glossed over one of my favorite parts of this issue is towards the beginning, for the first time, even in Amazing Fantasy 15, for the first time we see Aunt May actually grieve over Uncle Ben. And then Spider-Man / Peter sees that and then loses his powers. Which
Sam
is
Raimi influence.
Sam Raimi influence, of course.
We're as we're reading through these comics, we're seeing where Sam Raimi got his inspiration for those movies. We talked about issue 7 had a lot of scenes that they did in the movies, and this has him losing his powers due to existential crisis.
Especially in issue 18, I have some hot takes about issue 18. I already kind of told you about them over text.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he loses his powers, straight up, which is something he's got to deal with when fighting the Sinister Six. But obviously, once he starts fighting them, he gets his powers back. I mean, so he's kind of dealing with that. He's down in the dumps. He's like depressed. He lost his powers. It was kind of funny because he was like, "I don't want to be Spider-Man anymore. This sucks." And then he lost his powers, and he's like, "Wait a minute. Yes, I do."
He's like, "Oh, this sucks." So anyway, as I was saying, this is the first appearance of the Sinister Six. I feel like we got to interject here, and we've talked about this before off the podcast. What is your perfect Sinister Six of Spider-Man villains? Does not have to be a team that ever existed. What would be your...
So, in my opinion, my perfect Sinister Six would be my top 6 favorite villains. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. It's not going to make any sense.
Yeah.
But it does make sense. Okay. When I was a kid, I went over this. Okay. You don't think I got this all storyboarded out?
You wrote the
It
comic.
would work. It would work. But it would be difficult. So, obviously, Green Goblin's in there is my favorite ever.
Mm-hmm.
Throw Venom in there. Of course. I mean, I think Venom's number 2. I think Doc Ock's number 3 in terms of, arch nemesis for Spider-Man. I think it's Green Goblin, Venom, Doc Ock. My hot take. Carnage.
Venom and Carnage teaming up.
Wait, but wait, there's more. Hobgoblin.
Yeah, this team will
Scorpion,
not get
Scorpion and Electro.
along. Oh man, I was not gonna go that direction at all. I would honestly, I did like later in the '90s. Hobgoblin was on the Sinister Six for a while, and I did think that was cool. Obviously, I would have Doc Ock in there as the brains of the operation.
Yeah, he really was the brains of the operation in this issue, man.
He is later on, but Sandman, Sandman's really been growing on me as we've been reading these comics. Like issue 4 really kind of sold me on him, and like this issue, I don't know, I think he's cool. Vulture would definitely not be in there. Kraven would not be in there. Electro, honestly, Electro, Mysterio, Sandman, Doc Ock, I do like those 4. I would probably swap out Vulture and Kraven for... Oh man, so many choices. I mean, obviously Carnage is like my favorite, but he would have to be manipulated in some way to be a part of that team. But I'll say Carnage. He can be like the loose cannon they kind of set off to distract Spider-Man. I'll say Green Goblin, just because I like Green Goblin. But Green Goblin and Doc Ock would never work together, ever.
If you see a lot of people doing like stop motions and stuff like that, they always have those two there though, and they're always butting heads.
It doesn't make
in their
any
stories.
sense though, because I feel like
Which
their egos.
Storyboarded. I have it storyboarded.
It would have to
bro.
work because their egos would clash way too much.
I have Venom and Carnage working together storyboarded, bro. I got Hobgoblin and Green Goblin working together.
But you're forgetting something.
What's that?
Norman's on sabbatical, honey.
That's the point.
Oh,
That's why it's happening.
God, I love that movie. Anyway, so yeah, that would be my ideal Sinister Six.
So is that your top 6 favorite, or is that just like you actually making sense?
Toxic's favorite would be definitely Carnage and Doc Ock. I go back and forth. I mean, Carnage was my favorite growing up. Doc Ock has kind of been my favorite as I've gotten older and understood the depth of his story a little bit more. I would say Venom is on there, but I just always liked Carnage more than Venom, and honestly, I like Venom more as a hero, with like Agent Venom and everything that Donny Cates has been doing with it the last couple of years. I always really liked Shocker. Oh, no. Take out Green Goblin. Rhino. I loved Rhino growing up.
Rhino's pretty sick.
And he's the muscle.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Definitely Rhino. He's up there. I really want his first appearance. I don't have it.
If I were to make one that made sense, I don't have one off the top of my head, but obviously it wouldn't be 2 goblins and 2 symbiotes in the same thing. Now, a
Right.
goblin and a symbiote would probably be in there, and then I would have to pick 2 more guys.
I think Carnage would make more sense than Venom just because Venom has, like, some morals, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas Carnage, they could just be like, hey, do you want to cause chaos? And he'd be like, fuck yeah. Oop.
And honestly, Hobgoblin makes more sense.
He'd be
than
like, heck
Goblin.
yeah. And then they could send him loose on the city and kind of as a distraction or something. And Hobgoblin, too.
Yeah, it would make more sense than Green Goblin, yeah. But
Yeah.
where's the fun in all that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we just said top 6.
Maybe you know, those clashing. Yeah, it's some super powerful villains, right? But maybe that's what does them in my storyboarding.
Maybe. But going back to this comic.
Someone give me a budget, please.
Going back to this comic, one of my favorite things is the first scene when they're all together and Doc Ock's laying out the plan. He's like, everyone draw a card. This will determine the order in which we fight him. Now, on your cards is a location suited for you. If everyone's drawing a random card, how would everyone's card have a location that's suited for them?
It says that on the card. It says a location.
He says, we will each draw a number, and we will fight him one at a time, in the order of the drawing. I have worked out a detailed scheme which will force him to battle us. Now draw. And then he says, on each of your cards I have written a location. It is the place where you will battle our common enemy, and each location is best suited for your particular talents.
Yeah, they're rushing this book, huh? Because they just didn't put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe they drew them and then he wrote on them, but that was back-to-back panels, and I was like, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense.
Damn, I just killed a hot bro.
But, you know, good plan, Doc. Not horrible plan. Especially the whole underwater thing. Like, what was he thinking? Anyway, we'll get there. We see Peter and Aunt May. Aunt May, of course, fussing over him some more. And Peter skips school because he's having existential crisis about his guilt of being Spider-Man. And then we have another cameo, Giant Man and Wasp.
Yep.
Could not care less about them.
No, me neither. Fantastic Four also is in there. Or is that, am I
They were in there when he lost his powers. Yeah, they flew by.
They flew by, didn't care.
They were just like, oh, look at that guy. Screw him.
There's also the X-Men in here. Same thing. It was a one-panel thing. Avengers were in here. Pretty much a lot of these cameos were trying to find where Spider-Man was at when he didn't have powers to, like, go help Aunt May and Betty Brant, which have been abducted, by the way. There's so much going on in this book.
And Aunt May is so chill about it.
Well, because she's doting, first off. Second off, she's got the hot Dr. Octopus, bro.
She does, and we'll see where that goes in the future.
Which is, well, you don't know about the future. I know about the future.
Oh yeah, wow,
Yeah.
that's so weird. Why is she
It's weird, right?
crushing
Maybe
over
they date?
Doc Ock? Yeah, I forgot about that arrangement.
Of course.
But the first fight scene is with Electro.
And pretty cool. It's like it's at Stark something. So it's at a Stark facility, which is pretty sick. Which plays into Iron Man showing up at the end of their battle.
Yep.
But one thing that's really, really cool about this first Sinister Six book is each villain gets their one whole page
of really good art.
A really good art with them and Spider-Man, and it's really sick. And Electro's is just him getting absolutely mollywopped.
Which makes
by
me
Spider-Man.
very sad, because if I was a kid in the 60s who had no thought in my head about collecting these things, I would have ripped out every single one of those pages and put them up on the wall. Yes. And I bet that's an issue when you're buying annual ones. But the page before the full Electro image, there's another panel that reminds me a lot of that panel that we really liked in Amazing Spider-Man 3. It's Spider-Man with a shock of lightning, and there's red in the background and yellow in the foreground. It's on page 15.
Yes, okay.
For anyone watching on YouTube, I guess I'll show the camera. This panel. I just love that art. It reminds me a lot of the one from issue 3.
It's white in this.
What?
No red.
Oh, it's yellow.
Background's white.
Well, for my digital, it is red, and it looks awesome.
I'm pretty sure in the comic it was white as well.
Dang, so they really just changed that.
He's not yellow either. He's just white and
That's
blue.
wild. Well, I like what they did with it. I wonder what it was originally, but yeah, I noticed that. And then Iron Man shows up. He continues on. He's doing a little scavenger hunt. He gets a card from each villain, moves on to the next one.
Yeah,
it's kind of cute.
It is a scavenger hunt.
And then he fights some freaking leopards and Kraven the Hunter pretty easily. Like, he really struggled with him last time he fought him. And this time he makes quick. I don't know if he's just getting more experienced.
These 5 issues, he just, has no trouble at all.
Not yet.
And by the way, we talked about him losing his powers. Once he fights Electro, he immediately realizes that he didn't lose them. He just was, so...
psychosomatic.
Yeah, psychosomatic.
Kicks
and then
back
he
in.
immediately gets them back, which I think gives him a jolt as well, and he's really just on the tear.
Well, and I think I forget if it was this issue or a different issue. I think it might be issue 19. But I would say, we've been talking about the arc of each episode, right? Like, the first episode was him not really being a hero. Second episode was him starting to figure it out, but still being kind of an amateur. Obviously, last episode was him being more of an actual, selfless hero. And really, Betty's arc was kind of the big one last. I think this episode, the arc is really him accepting what it means to be Spider-Man.
Right. And he's also starting to excel at it.
He's starting to be good at it, but he was struggling. In this issue, he's like, I don't want to be Spider-Man. In the next couple of issues, he struggles with I shouldn't be Spider-Man. And then ultimately, by the end of this episode today, with issue 19, he accepts and is like, all right, I have a responsibility. He kind of finally accepts the whole great power, great responsibility mantra, which I think is kind of the arc we see this issue. But he meets up with Human Torch, who immediately goes, hey, you want some help? And, you're fighting 6 villains. Do you want some help? Spider-Man goes, no.
Rather not. It's my battle, he says.
He goes, it's personal. Which, I get that, but also, would it hurt to have some help? But I didn't realize how much Human Torch really appears in these early issues.
In these 5, or I guess there's 4 issues, he's in 3 of them.
He was in...
4 of them?
Was he in 16?
Yeah. No.
No, he's in Annual 1, he's in 17, he's in 18, and 19.
And then I don't think he's in 19, he's in 19 too.
Well, we'll see when we get there, but I'm pretty sure he is.
So.
But then the X-Men show back up.
You could tell how much deep down that Human Torch wants to be his friend.
Yeah, and he even starts to say it a little bit. He's like, I'm kind of liking this guy.
Right, exactly.
Which they do end up, I wonder if they'll end up becoming good friends. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It seems like they're...
I'm not going to spoil it for you.
They're really building up to that. I don't know.
So, he says no to Flash. He says no to the Human Torch. Mm-hmm. And we go back to Aunt May and Betty Brant having some nice tea and some Danishes with Doc Ock.
I'm like,
Doc Ock is just
what does Aunt May think this is? I don't think she realizes this entire issue that she's been kidnapped.
She's doting, dude. I don't know. She's just so doting in this issue.
She's literally just like, oh, tea, yeah, we're here for that. And I'm like, what?
He's so handsome. He's got mechanical arms that are or were fused to his body. I know she reads the news. She knows what's going on. She must know who this guy. She doesn't know who he is somehow.
I don't know.
And Betty Brant doesn't tell her listen, he kidnapped me twice.
Yeah.
Or once.
And we're actively kidnapped right now.
He tries to, but she's like, how are you so calm? It's like, I don't know. He's got such good manners.
But the next villain that he fights is the X-Men. Just kidding, it's actually Mysterio. Using some animatronic X-Men, which is interesting.
Some real Wizard of Oz stuff going on here. Spider-Man senses him behind a fake wall, smashes through it, finds Mysterio.
Almost burns his note.
But again, within one big page, as we were talking about, and then a couple other panels, he's done with him.
Yeah.
Like, he absolutely
quick work
steamrolls through Mysterio. And uses his spider sense to pretty much decode Royale here.
Yeah, and immediately after, probably one of my favorite moments from this issue, we see Jonah Jameson's descent into madness as he starts talking to a spider.
Actually laughing. I was actually laughing at this. This is like
he's like, well, if Ant-Man can do it.
You can imagine being Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, like, writing these books, and like I feel like that is more for them. You know what I mean? They're trying to have a good laugh. Like, they probably find this funny.
Yeah. I find it funny. I think it's great.
I know, I do too. But there's definitely, I think, a part of them that was like, "This is for us. We're gonna put this in there, make ourselves laugh."
Now, speaking of making quick work of villains, Sandman gets absolutely demolished in like. Well, no, he doesn't even get demolished. He totally, completely screws up in about 5 seconds.
Sandman should be upset.
Yeah.
And again, I think this is probably also Doc Ock's doing. I'm guessing Sandman didn't make that little trap.
Probably not, no.
So, again, Doc Ock absolutely dropping the ball in terms of planning. He made it so sealed tight that you can't even breathe in it.
I just love how this victory over Sandman had nothing to do with Spider-Man actually triumphing. It's literally just like, oh, you messed up.
Yeah, you messed up. Like, I can breathe longer than you can, and this cage, the trap that we're in, is sealed tight that now you can't breathe. So you're exhausted, you can't breathe, I'm out.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I love the pace of this issue, kind of cutting back and forth between, like, Spider-Man fights a villain. We see JJ devolve further into madness. It shows Betty and Aunt May, then it cuts back to Spider-Man. Like, you're kind of following all these, like, once again, we have another 3 panels of JJ just absolutely losing his mind.
We are really doing good with these 5 issues an episode, because it really seems like 5 issues, Stan's always, like, starting to develop something. Like, he's planning ahead to a certain extent, because JJ's slowly going into madness, which will, like,
really
at
climax
issue 20.
next issue, yeah.
Well, or issue 20, really, with the Scorpion, right?
Or next episode.
Well,
who's Scorpion? I haven't read that.
He's this guy. He's like a Scorpion.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I guess I'll see next month when issue 20 comes out.
Yeah, JJ, like, listen, you'll see.
Yeah.
You'll see a little bit of him in issue 19, but,
Oh, yeah? Well, I don't know who that guy is, but... anyway, fighting the Vulture. This is the only guy who actually almost beats him. But he still kind of screws up.
Yeah, he screws up, too. I love he puts oil on, like, what seems to be it's like a chimney or something. I don't know what the hell that is.
Yeah.
And then flaps his wings really hard to bring a gust of wind to then have Spider-Man slip. Really great, really classic 1960s type of
kind of like slapstick,
slapstick stuff. Yeah. These damn lassos and these damn ropes. If I see another lasso in a book again, I'm gonna lose my mind. Vulture tries to lasso Spider-Man again. He screws up, ends up getting himself lassoed, and defeated at the end of the day.
Yep, another beautiful full page panel.
Yeah, he's got a big old hump on the back of his neck, huh?
Yeah, my guy needs to see a chiropractor.
Yeah, he is really old.
Yeah. And yet somehow he stays around maybe he'll stay around for a long time. I'm somehow seeing glimpses into the future. I don't know how I'm doing it, but
well, you're thinking about what may happen. You're interested.
JJ continues losing his mind. Aunt May continues being completely fine. Aunt May is the definition of that meme with the dog sitting at the table and everything's on fire, and it's just like, oh, everything's fine.
But I think that dog knows everything's on fire and she's trying to play it cool. I think Aunt May just doesn't even know. She doesn't smell the smoke. Like, she's just like,
yeah,
this is great.
Aunt May is more like Stan Lee in the Amazing Spider-Man 1 when he's in the library
exactly.
and everything's just happening around him. He's just like, like completely no idea what's going on.
But Spider-Man finally finds his way to Doc Ock and Betty Brant and Aunt May in a castle,
Cool.
which is an interesting setting, right?
Yeah, they literally said
And
that they moved this castle brick by brick from a different country because America famously does not have castles.
right.
So interesting. They were like, we need a castle for this scene. And someone was like, Stan, there's no castles in America. And he was like, no, no, no. It was imported brick by brick.
Into New York City.
Yeah. I don't know.
Makes sense. So,
Yeah. Continuing, it's a cool set piece.
Yeah. Yes, of course. We're just being assholes. So, fighting Doc Ock. Doc Ock uses the whole unable to detach his arms to his advantage. So Spider-Man's pretty much fighting the arms in some of these panels, while Doc Ock just is like, "Let's go!" cheering on his arms and telling him what to do. I do forget sometimes that when Doc Ock takes these punches, like he is just a dude.
Yeah. Like,
So
he's getting knocked.
he's getting really knocked around and staying up. So I mean, honestly impressive.
Although my man's got some muscles. He goes with the sleeveless shirt.
I thought
He's
about
kind of
that.
ripped.
He must have really
He's
done
not as
some work in
not
prison.
as tubby as you'd think he is.
My guess is that when he was in jail, he just started going. I mean, what else are you gonna do? I guess.
Yeah. But his ultimate plan is to drop Spider-Man in a vat of water and then go in with scuba gear.
A straight up fishbowl.
This is a terrible idea.
But it's not even a tub of water. It's a fishbowl. It's a glass fishbowl. Huge
Yeah.
glass fishbowl.
I
Drops
mean-
him in, says, "Just like my name, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go with that."
Yeah,
And
they're kind of leaning into the octopus thing, like understandable, but
it's different.
it's
I like
different. It's weird. Not
different,
not the Doc Ock that I like. And Peter beats him pretty easily. He just sprays his webs, and gunks him up, and then he saves Betty and Aunt May, and they head home, and it's a happy ending. You see all the villains just chilling in jail,
Right. All together.
all together. Which a lot of them have superpowers, so I don't know, like what's keeping Sandman from just like sneaking away.
Or Electro from absolutely shocking that guard.
Yeah, but it be like that. So that is the first annual. There's a bunch of other stuff in the back of the book. I didn't really. I mean, they just have some spotlights on all the villains so far.
I read it. I read them.
Is there a backstory, like a second story?
So,
There's
yeah,
the secrets of. It's all his powers. Yeah, so obviously this book is kind of to introduce new readers to Spider-Man and also to all of his villains and all of the other Marvel characters.
So yeah, there's a dedicated 1 page and a little bit of a read up to every single villain up until this point, from Amazing Spider-Man or Amazing Fantasy 15 to issue 15, from the Burglar to Craven. There's also a story, The Secrets of Spider-Man, where it goes through pretty much, it says answering a bunch of people's questions and explaining his powers, his family, layout of his house,
Yeah.
which everyone needed, of course.
Guest star page. Like they obviously threw in some fun stuff in here. Obviously, I mean, we talked about the full panels in the book. This is just more pages that I feel like people probably ripped out and put on their wall.
Right, so I want to actually talk about that. So there's no cover to this, but the book inside is actually in really good condition. The front is a little bit browning. That makes sense. There's no cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the inside is probably like off-white to white pages. It's pretty nice. And you had mentioned the pinup that's on here, the guest star page, and it's like, for your Marvel scrapbook, we present a pinup. The pinup is in there.
Nice.
But I didn't realize, so when I went back, there's a page missing, and it's the page that says Peter Parker as Spider-Man, and it has him on the wall. That's not in my book.
Mm.
So they gave some little crapper the idea for a pinup. He didn't like that pinup. He said, let me rip this page out instead.
So many pages in this book.
And then probably also rip the damn cover off.
Yeah.
Here.
That's where, I feel like as a collector, I mean, I don't have an annual one. Whenever I do get around to buying one, I feel like I'm going to really have to prioritize one that's
Extra
complete.
in there.
But,
And then there's one last 2-page, 3-page comic that I actually really, really enjoyed. It's how Stan Lee and Steve Ditko create Spider-Man, and it's like a little comic with Stan Lee getting an idea, waking up Ditko, and all this stuff. And they like make it seem like they hate each other, which I was seeing the end. They said like, oh, all jokes, but we realized that it probably wasn't jokes at all.
It's like kind of true.
It's kind of true. And a lot of this was funny. Like I don't know if you read it, but I was laughing. Like
I did
if
not
you
read
didn't,
it.
I think you should actually go back and read it. It's actually funny.
I will go back.
I found I was actually laughing. It was pretty cool to see. So
Yeah.
I did read those.
Yeah, for anyone who is not comic nerds like us, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, the co-creators of all of these comics we've been reviewing, kind of had a big falling out. Kind of didn't get along very well. I think Steve did not like how Stan got all the credit for all of the characters. That's why a lot of the time nowadays you see people credit both of them equally, very intentionally, because obviously they co-created the character. But
And also the letter guy is in here. S. Rosen.
oh yeah,
He's in that little comic issue as well.
nice. So a little spotlight on the. I like to think that it was literally just those three guys like in an office in New York, whereas like nowadays you think of Marvel and they have like 50 people on staff making like 100 different comics.
And it probably was only like I mean, not 3 people, right? But there's probably only like 10, 15 people in that office.
I mean, think about it. Working for Marvel in the 60s, names that I can think of. I mean, there's the S. Rosen, Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, the publisher Martin Goodman. And I think they had a receptionist. I forgot her name.
Yeah.
But I remember reading a book about Marvel back in the day, and they had so it was like 6-7 people.
Yeah, it was not much.
Which is crazy to think that like now one of the largest cinematic universes, or the largest cinematic universes, as byproduct of those like 7 people working in an office. But also, this is kind of a tangent, but I was seeing this the other day. The Marvel comic book universe is the largest work of fiction in human history.
Makes sense.
Because
like
technically all of the comics are one part of this like big work of fiction telling the story of the Marvel Universe. And the amount of pages, the amount of story, like it is the largest, bigger than, I mean, obviously it's bigger than like other big stories that come to mind like Lord of the Rings and all those other ones. So that's kind of crazy that all kind of started with Stan and Steve and Jack and all those guys back then. But diving into the next issue. This one,
I got a lot to talk about towards the end of this.
I think, I mean, I know we usually wait for the end to say our favorite. I think 17 was probably my favorite issue this week.
Oh, I skipped right to 18. Jesus.
Oh my gosh, you can't skip 17. 17 is the first proper Green Goblin, in my opinion.
You're right.
And speaking of collecting, I don't have the first appearance. I do have the second appearance. We talked about this last episode. This was when you bought your 15. I bought this 17. That was our compromise because we both really wanted the 15. It's a little beat up. My copy, some kid like scribbled on it with a pen and like outlined the lines of Green Goblin. So there's like indents on him, and Spider-Man has like pen all over him. But from a distance, it looks pretty solid. So.
Mine's actually pretty solid. Again, issue 17 was not much at all back in the day when we were collecting. It was like not even almost probably $100. Not even.
I think I got this for probably like 75. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's like it's.
Which is the same time as you got your 15 for whatever.
Right. The 85. But the only problem with mine is like I think that's Liz. Like her face just like scratched out. I guess some kid hated her or something. I don't know.
He's like, stop trying to take him from Betty Brant.
Did you actually read it from this?
I did not because I was reading in bed sick. Oh, that makes sense. I was like, I thought I started reading it and I was like, oh wait, I have 17. I should read it, but I didn't want to get up. So I just kept going.
Right.
But I'm gonna start with the next. Well, I have a few from the next episode, so I'll start there. But this is obviously the second appearance of Green Goblin. This is the first time he has the glider, the pumpkin bombs. You know, the whole.
There's a couple different other things that I don't think really show up much moving forward,
the
like
sparkly fingers.
Frog. Sparkly fingers.
The little frog.
Little frog, little ghost. The bat things do stick around.
Yeah, obviously very Halloween themed.
Of course, yes.
Continuing the mystery of his identity.
Mm-hmm. So it does start off with the guy in the brown suit, which left off in issue 14, which I know you don't know who he is.
Yeah, I mean,
anyone else do.
If I had to guess, I would say J. Jonah Jameson.
Realistically, if you had to guess, who would you say it is?
J. Jonah Jameson. Although, he has the brown suit, and I think next issue Ned Leeds first appears, and Ned Leeds has the brown suit, so I would immediately suspect that guy as well.
I'll tell you this, it's actually Norman Osborn.
Who?
Oh, I guess we'll get to that.
Yeah, we haven't got there. No spoilers, man.
Well, by the time we get to that, you'll forget.
That's true. But yeah, they're keeping his secret identity.
Harry Osborn's dad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Harry doesn't come until college, I think, right? I assume, you know.
How did you know that?
But anyway, Flash is starting the Spider-Man fan club.
Let's go.
And immediately after that, Spider-Man goes to stop some caped robbers going into a helicopter. But wait, it's actually a movie set.
So, this starts a little 3-issue, at least as we know right now, a little 3-issue arc of Spider-Man absolutely unable to do anything correctly. That and Peter Parker himself.
Yeah.
Like, he cannot catch a break at all. Everything he tries to do for good ends up hurting him in a different way. Yada, yada, yada. Classic stuff. But they really go hard in these 3 issues with that. To the point where it makes him question doing this at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, and that's kind of, like I said, the arc is him kind of accepting that. Because this is obviously him screwing up, and everyone's like, "Oh, look at Spider-Man! What an idiot!" And obviously JJ gets a good laugh out of it. But Peter's, he's shrugging it off. He's like, "All right, it's a little frustrating, but I'll be okay." And then Liz, I love this. Is probably one of my favorite scenes when Liz and Flash show up when Peter is walking Betty home, and Betty and Liz are like super catty towards each other.
Dude, I was reading this, and I literally had to throw my head back and like take a second. When she was like, "Looks like you gained some weight." Putting on some weight. Liz says to Betty Brant,
"Putting on some weight, aren't you, Miss Brant?" Oh my god, that
holy moly,
burned. And then the art of her face, just like And then what is it? I love her. The blonde boy stealer wants the world to know how rich she is. Which, like, okay, here's the thing. I know that Betty's like the main love interest right now. Okay, I just don't. Betty doesn't do it for me.
I like Betty.
If I were reading this back in the '60s, I would probably say Liz over Betty. I'm team Liz.
Priorities straight. She's wifey material.
Yeah, but she's also kind of like a little bit crazy, possessive.
Oh no, fully. But
literally, Liz just shows up and she's like, "Peter is cheating on me."
Well, also Liz is like, in a issue in the future, Flash is mad at Liz, and then he's like, "I'm not mad at you anymore," and then he's like, "Well, I'm mad at you now because you were mad at me." So I really don't know which one is. It's the better of two evils, I guess.
Yeah, but. I mean, obviously neither is the one, but.
No, he keeps trying. Aunt Major keeps trying to like get on this blind date with this lady named MJ.
Yeah, Mrs. Watson's niece.
Yeah, she's probably ugly.
Probably, yeah, straight out of a horror movie. Although I don't know if you noticed, but in the next issue, she calls her Mrs. Watkins.
Yeah, I noticed that.
The entire issue, and I was like, that's not correct.
That's not it. I was actually thinking, like, is it different? I don't understand.
For a second, I was like, is it a different person? But then she showed up, she was like, Anna, and I was like, no, Anna Watson. Yeah, that's right. But, whatever. But, yeah, I love... This scene has a lot of just comedic gold. I mean, the scene with Betty and Liz is obviously hilarious, and then the scene where Aunt May is, like... setting up the blind date, and he's like, "Oh, she's sick. No, she's sick. Like, we can't." Like, just all of his reactions, and then being like, "Oh no, she should stay home. No, it's fine." Like, trying to get out of this date so badly. They've really set up MJ like early.
It took literally, I think it was like years until like,
yeah,
obviously full appearance.
Yeah,
42
is yeah.
So
yeah, they're really setting that up early. So I can't wait to see this Miss Watson's niece.
You'll see her legs and stuff soon, I think.
Weird, but all right.
Yep. I don't know what to tell you. I didn't read the book. You get what you get, man. You get what you get with these books. See your legs. That's gonna be it for you.
Yep.
Now, in the first half, a lot of dialogue between our supporting characters, and again, Jonah Jameson continuing to go into madness. Because he doesn't like that his... So, I guess... The Spider-Man fan club is getting an ad in his paper.
Yeah.
I don't know how he let that happen.
Well, apparently he's not happy that he did. Because he's almost immediately... He's starting... We're seeing JJ's supervillain origin right now. Because he's literally like, I'm going to put a damper on that club. I was like, whoa, what are you going to do, man? Like...
He's gonna put a damper on that club.
Like, what is this man out to do? He's gonna hurt somebody.
So Flash Thompson and Liz set up like a dinner party-esque for the club, where Spider-Man is asked to join.
Yeah.
And Flash is so certain that he's a good guy that he will show up because he's gonna see it in the newspaper. He's definitely gonna show up. there's a little bit of a side thing where Betty thinks that, like, Betty wants to go to this, like, party or whatever you want to call it, club
Yeah.
meeting with Peter, but Peter doesn't invite her because he can't be Spider-Man if he's with her, so he doesn't invite her. And this is one of those times where he tries to do the right thing, or he has something he needs to do, but then it ends up does something he needs to do for Spider-Man, ends up squandering something for Peter.
Well, and then he ends up having to cover his secret identity with Liz, and that is what ultimately gets him in trouble. And this issue kind of ends the whole Betty-Peter romance. But
I was interested in seeing how it ended, and it was very realistic.
Kind of just fizzles out.
Yep.
But Green Goblin shows up, starts messing with Spider-Man, and everybody thinks it's an act.
Right, I don't know how.
Which, I mean, I guess, but it's an interesting fight. I like it. It's enjoyable action. I like how everyone is just kind of there, and Liz very... The wording is pretty... It's like, oh, I've never seen Peter and Spider-Man at the same time. Like, that's quite the conclusion to come to, given how little you've seen him, but...
Again, I get why you're going to say something like that. Like, or I get why she's not going to be like, oh, it must be Peter, because then, like, all right, well, then you're going to deal with that. But then, I don't know why you put the dialogue in that.
Yeah, but, I mean, that creates the problem for Spider-Man of, like, oh, no, I need to go and become Peter. And so then Human Torch shows up, and he goes and quick swaps and is like, hey, Liz. And that is when Betty sees him, and he is in trouble.
Because Betty ended up going with Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
So that's how she ends up going. And seeing Peter having his hair getting all touched up by Liz. Because Peter's hair is messed up by the mask he was wearing. Mm-hmm. Which is, that's a fun little thing. I like that.
Yeah.
Shows you some more realistic problems, I guess. Little tiny things that you can come across when wearing a spandex suit.
Yeah, and so that moment pretty much ends Betty and Peter because she is convinced that he is in love with Liz and cheating on her. Although I'm pretty sure he even said earlier in the issue that he has a girlfriend, so obviously he considers Betty his girlfriend. He does, yeah. He says, "I've got a girlfriend." About it like that. Yeah, I mean they seem pretty casual, but he says, "I've got a girlfriend," so I don't know. But Betty goes and cries, Peter goes and changes back into Spider-Man, and he starts fighting Green Goblin. Now, for some reason, the owner of the business gets a call saying, where's Peter Parker? Aunt May has had a heart attack. Why anyone would be calling this place, I don't know. Did he tell Aunt May that he was going to this?
I don't think so.
Yeah, but I don't know. Awfully convenient, but obviously he immediately goes, okay, I need to leave. And that is pretty much the pivotal moment for the next two issues is he runs away, which means Green Goblin gets to get away, so we still don't know his identity, but also everyone now thinks that Spider-Man is a coward.
Also, another Human Torch appearance kind of fights Green Goblin with Spider-Man. Spider-Man runs away, and then Human Torch straight up just a fight with the Goblin, and it ends up with Green Goblin getting away.
Yeah.
So, Jonah Jameson says, this is it. This is my big break. Spider-Man is a fraud. Everyone's going to know I'm right, and that's pretty much what happens. He prints it in the paper. Everybody believes JJ, obviously. Well, I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit. But,
yeah. What are you talking about? That's the next issue. I haven't...
Even the people there. So immediately, JJ is happy about it. He knows what he's going to do. Let's say that. And then in the last page of the issue, everyone there is already saying, like, he's turned yellow. Which, first time ever hearing that type of thing. Spider-Man has turned yellow. Straight up yellow. And immediately Flash is like, there's no way. There had to be a good reason. Come on, with the Spider-Man fan club. And everyone's like, forget about your fan club. Did you just see what happened?
He ran coward.
Away. He's a coward. He's turned yellow. And that's pretty much where we ended, where he is sprinting to Aunt May. He gets to Aunt May. So Aunt May had a heart attack. She needs an operation.
Her health has not been good in these first 20 issues.
No, it is not. We find out that she will need a operation, at least, or she had an operation.
Yeah. I would rate this issue 8 out of 10.
I would say I would give that an 8 out of 10 as well. I love how it ends with, like, him pretty much, like, I always must pay for being Spider-Man. Like, he's, like, just, like, everything I tried to do well as, you know, this responsibility of being a hero just is wrecking my personal life completely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a very interesting issue 18, where ends up being no fighting in the whole issue. There's not one fight.
Yeah, no.
There's attempts at fights, obviously, but there's no actual fight in this issue, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of like plot development, things like that. Obviously starts off with J. Jonah, biggest grin on his face ever, as he's publishing
such a great
Spider-Man,
splash
a coward. He is very happy. And then this is what I was talking about. It shows all of the villains reacting, and both Kraven and Vulture look like they're out of prison. So,
right, yeah,
they done escaped in the last like issue.
But then Doc Ock is still in prison.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because if he was out of prison, he would be here. I do not have 18, no.
I don't either.
I almost bought one recently.
Because I want to get every single Amazing Spider-Man issue that has Green Goblin in it from 14 to 122, even the cameos. So 18 is a big one because there's a lot of Green Goblin mentioning, and I guess you could say cameos or little.
Yeah, he's right there on page 2
of him.
And splash page, yeah.
And he's talked about throughout the issue because the big thing is that he ran away from the Green Goblin.
Yeah, this issue kind of deals with the aftermath of last issue, which was really refreshing to see because so far the book has mostly been a bunch of one-offs. But now we're starting to get into that kind of continuous story that I think makes comics so good.
So you do see a lot of the 4 of his villains react: Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Kraven, Vulture. I love that little Green Goblin, like with his hands out, smiling, like I have defeated him. I did it. My first one to make Spider-Man run away. He says he'll be world famous. That's my boy, bro. World famous Green Goblin.
His motive doesn't make any sense to me though.
It does. You will see in issue 23. You'll see his real motive. I know that hasn't released for you in your world yet.
Yeah.
But you'll see in issue 23 really what he's going for.
All right.
Just trust me. You gotta stay along for the ride. Now, even though his motive's already he's crazy. He's a crazy man. He's obsessed with this guy now.
I mean, obviously, yeah.
But
we see Mrs. Watkins coming over to help take care of Aunt May.
Well, also, so we see the villains react. We also see every Marvel hero react.
Yeah.
And I like Daredevil's reaction. He was like, when I last saw Spider-Man, my instincts told me he was a good fighter. How can my super sharp senses of Daredevil have been so wrong? So he's upset.
Ouch.
He's like, damn.
That one hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
He didn't even think for a second oh, I don't know. I got a vibe from him that he's just immediately like, well, I guess I was wrong.
I guess I was wrong. How could he be so wrong?
The power of fake news, you know.
Jonah Jameson is peaking right now. He is at the top of his game. He's got Daily Bugle, what looks like a Daily Bugle truck with an ad on it. Jonah Jameson exposes Spider-Man, the myth. There's disarray going on.
He's on TV.
I believe this issue and all this kind of takes the course over a month, I think, because each issue says last month this happened.
Mm-hmm,
and it was, so I'm pretty sure it's been a month since 17. So
he's been caring for Aunt May, yeah. She had her operation, and
it wasn't one day and all of a sudden JJ is has all these ads and he has he's on TV and this. It built up, I guess, over a couple of days and weeks. Spider-Man even tries to go make money for Aunt May's medicine because he's run out of medicine. Obviously, he's broke. By going to some guy that makes athlete cards, and the guy wants nothing to do with him because he says he's washed up.
Yeah.
Calls Spider-Man washed up.
Blows smoke in his face.
Straight up gangster, though.
Rude. But
that's so great.
This is an important moment. Peter sees some robbers on the roof of a jewelry store. And he goes, all right, I should break this up. But then he hesitates. And he says, no, if I were to die, who would take care of Aunt May? I can't fight crime anymore. And this is where he's starting to consider quitting being Spider-Man.
Right. Because he needs to take care of Aunt May. She's doting and she's not in good health.
Have you learned nothing in the last 18 issues, Peter? With great power comes great responsibility, but he will learn that.
But I was gonna say I don't know, again, sometimes I think we do read too much into the early issues because I don't think there's as much of depth to everything as we sometimes make it out to be. But I do like how it seems like it's taking him a while to learn his lesson because it's very realistic. Sometimes something happens and you'd be like, oh, okay, this is how it is, and then you do it again and you're like, damn, I gotta get myself straight. You know what I'm saying? It's a very realistic thing that you don't always learn your lesson the first time. It might take one or two fails or things happening to you get things straight.
That's true.
So I kind of do like that.
This issue, he also is trying to call Betty to patch things up. She's not answering. It recaps the annual one. So it's kind of him reminiscing on the events of that.
Yep, everybody's listening to their Webheads Conf Club issue episode 4 for the review on what's happened.
Yep. But he's starting to get pissed off. I mean, JJ is kind of gloating in his face, and he is getting mad. You can see his face. JJ has the biggest smile, and Peter has the biggest scowl. He's trying to figure something out. He goes to try to sell his web fluid to, work as an adhesive, but it dissolves, so it doesn't really work as a great adhesive. Just can't get a break.
He's like, I can make it permanent, but it's going to take months in the lab, and he doesn't have time for that. He needs the money now. Sandman arrives.
Yes.
He bumps into Sandman.
Broke out of jail.
Bumps into Sandman, running away from him because he can't risk losing to him and Aunt May being by herself. And obviously everybody catches this, and he's like, this is just doubling down on him being a chicken.
Yep.
For everybody. So, just, you can't catch a break. I mean, imagine running into Sandman during these times. JJ, he's going to break his mouth smiling so hard.
Every panel with JJ just has the biggest grin on his face.
So good. And you can see, like, there's that one panel on, or a big kind of long panel on page 14.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see on the corner, like, Peter Parker's just pissed. Like, everything that's going on. He's kind of recapping it to himself, and he's like, this is just... The whole world, he says, thinks he's a coward. And as long as Aunt May remains seriously ill, there's nothing he can do about it. So, like, he just needs to deal with this. Like, he has a responsibility to Aunt May where he cannot risk getting hurt himself or getting killed.
Yeah. And we start to see Johnny Storm simp for Spider-Man a little bit. He's like, oh, there must be more to this. I'm going to go find him. And he tries to meet up with him, but Spider-Man stands him up.
Yep.
And then for the
we don't see...
Go ahead.
We don't see, like, Peter or Spider-Man, like, oh, wait, no, a message from Human Torch, but I didn't, like, somehow skip that.
Yeah, he says, meet me at our place, and he's like, well, I can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that, right?
But then immediately after that, for probably, the second or third time, we see Flash donning a Spider-Man costume, because that always goes well.
Always goes well. He wants to prove to everybody.
Didn't learn his lesson last time.
Well, he wants to prove to everybody, mocking him and making fun of him, saying Spider-Man is a coward, when Flash Thompson is sticking up for Spider-Man. And then immediately bullying, or being an asshole to Peter, which is always a fun little thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, he's like, I'm going to prove to everybody that Spider-Man's not a coward. So he goes to fight a bunch of criminals, car thieves, and he gets his
butt kicked.
Yep, his head rocked.
And I love some of the art on page 18. Flash's face when he's like delirious, and then Peter's face around the corner. He's like, "Whoo!"
He's wiping his head.
Really expressive faces. I think Steve
because he was going to save him with no suit on.
Yeah, like he was just running in.
That would have been it for the identity. And the police came in the nick of time, and he was like, that was almost it.
Yeah.
I almost completely gave away my identity. And in the same page, we see Flash Thompson's big old eye swollen and getting punched. And it seems like in these issues, Peter will say even one word to Flash, and it's like immediate 10 of anger with Flash. Like, he is just
that's how bullies are, it's 0 to 100 right away.
Right, but it's just like, just stay out of my way. And I was like, listen, I hear, stay out of my way. Like, you're a chum.
Yeah.
All right, Peter calls him a chum, I guess.
Yeah, Peter throws it back, but
no, he always throws.
He does try to be nice to him, but and then, as if Peter was not already down bad enough, he sees Betty with another man. But he's kind of a gentleman about it, though.
No, he's really cool. Both of them are really cool, and we find out who it is, I think, next issue.
We find out who it is next issue, and that's when he's, like, really kind to the guy. I mean, he's not, like, a jerk about it to Betty. But this is when he decides to quit being Spider-Man. He says, I'm done being Spider-Man. And then Aunt May gives him a pep talk. Classic Aunt May pep talk.
I want to talk about how I feel about this whole end of this issue, like, the whole last couple pages. So Peter comes home after seeing all that, and he's like, he's just straight up depressed on what's going on. He's kind of recapping to himself his problems. He comes home. He rips off the Spider. He talks to Aunt May real quick. He rips off the Spider-Man suit. He puts it in. Is that like a laundry bag, right?
Yeah, something like that.
And he puts it in a laundry bag. It looks like a white bag. He crushes it up, and then he throws it in the hamper. Or is that the trash?
I think it's trash.
It looks like a hamper, but I will say it's trash. So he crumbles it up in a bag, throws it in the trash, and then he goes to sleep. Okay. The next morning he wakes up. Aunt May is no longer in her wheelchair. She's walking around. Her whole attitude has changed. She's gone from like recovering, feeling a little bit better, but recovering to standing up, and you can see she's waving her hands around. There's like these little like lines around her head. Like it just seems like she's in a tizzy. She's like, nonsense. I'm feeling better. You don't want me to want to make an invalid of me. What the hell?
Yeah,
okay,
weird wording. Yeah,
1960s. She's kind of like mad at Peter almost, and then she gives him a big old pep talk. The doctor comes in, says she's in great health. She doesn't need any more medicine, and then Peter gets this big jolt of this big rejuvenation. He takes the costume out of the trash, rips open the bag. He puts back on the Spider-Man suit, and he's like, "This is what I'm gonna do. I'm Spider-Man. This is me. Whatever." Aunt May knows.
We did say we were gonna try and see when she figures it out.
And I think it's now.
I think Stanley wrote it that way?
Maybe.
No.
But he may have, though.
I think he was just like, okay, Peter needs a pep talk to get back into it.
So perfect.
He wanted to do the fake out of like he quits, but then May gives him a pep talk and he's back in it. I think canonically this could be when she figures it out. Yeah.
Because listen, he throws it in the trash. The next panel is immediately the next morning. We don't see him going to bed. We don't see Aunt May going to bed. I think Aunt May saw the bag in the trash, looked in it, saw the suit, and knew.
I mean, this is the moment that I was kind of talking about, where he finally he doesn't actually say the whole with great power, great responsibility thing, but he says, I'll fight as I've never fought before. Nothing will stop me now, for I know at last that a man can't change his destiny, and I was born to be Spider-Man. Like, he's kind of accepting that he's Spider-Man. He's accepting that, like, this is going to be my life now. There's going to be challenges, but that's what I have to do.
And like we said, this whole thing is just like, Spider-Man No More's taken, Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. But also in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, there's a scene where a lot of people say where Spider-Man's not Spider-Man anymore, or he's not being Spider-Man. Aunt May's talking to him, talking about this same type of stuff. And everyone says that in that scene, Aunt May knows, doesn't tell him he knows, but trying to give him a pep talk to go back to Spider-Man. I think this is that same exact thing, and I think, again, this is like some
I
what's
love
the word I'm
that
looking
scene
for?
in the movie.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
probably my
And I
favorite
think
scene.
I think exactly what's happened here in a different way. I think that this book was inspiration for that. And the same thing happens in Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well.
I believe there's a hero in all of us.
I think it's the same type of thing.
Makes me cry, man. Is she alive still?
I think so, actually. I think she's still acting.
She's old. Anyway.
But do you agree or disagree? I literally think...
I didn't pick up on that when I read it. I don't think that Stan intentionally did that. I think maybe if we were trying to determine when in the canon she figured it out, I could say that would be a valid moment. But really we need to see the next few issues of, like, if she's still like, oh, poor frail Peter, you know what I mean? Then, like,
Yeah, true. Then, okay, right back to...
Yeah.
Maybe I was wrong or whatever, but... I really do think this was inspiration for that scene in Spider-Man 2 as well.
Probably, yeah.
And it happened in Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well at the end. Like, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember that. Obviously not as good, but... I was excited when I read this. I was like, it's happening.
This is the moment.
This is the moment.
But I love this issue. I think, like you mentioned, there's no action in it, so it's a lot of just, like, character development and story, and I think that's good. It's kind of nice to take a pause from the non-stop fight scenes. I would rate it 7 out of 10.
I'd give it an 8. On par with 17. I think, honestly, those last couple pages did it for me.
Yeah, good couple pages.
Yep.
It
was pretty hype, It was like, he was like, we're Parkers, like, come on. And then he rips the bag with the suit in it and puts it on. He's like, let's go.
It does remind me of also in No Way Home, like Aunt May's pep talks to Peter in that.
Right.
Just very much like, this is what we do. We do the right thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so diving into the next issue, Amazing Spider-Man 19. Now, we cut for a moment there because I had to run to the restroom, and while we were cut, you mentioned that you did not like this issue. I really liked this issue. Why? I think I know why. Is it the Enforcers?
Yes, it's the Enforcers.
They're all over the place.
I hate them, bro. I'm done with the
They
Enforcers.
are Spider-Man's real arch nemesis.
It was okay. It was.
They've
good issue
appeared
10.
more than any. No, Doc Ock had more.
It was good in issue 10. Great issue with the big man. I love the big man, by the way. Love the big man. His Enforcers were with him. Cool. Issue 14, I could have done without him.
Yeah, they didn't add much to that.
I really do not like that they're in this. I just don't like. Maybe I'm crotchety. I don't know. I'm just not a fan.
So speaking of collecting, I do have issue 19. Covers detached, but it displays really well. Colors look really good. This is actually the first Silver Age Spider-Man comic book I ever owned.
I think I remember that.
Which that was like a huge deal because I went from having like my oldest book was like in the 170s to having issue 19. Like I was kind of freaking out at the time. And thinking that was just the coolest ever. Don't really like this cover that much. It's kind of bland.
If you notice that Spider-Man swinging is like the one thing always used in the 1960 cartoon.
Yep.
So that's cool. I guess that's the cool thing.
The origin of it, yeah.
Yep.
But this is another Human Torch guest appearance, which I'm kind of sick of the Human Torch. It's Sandman again, which Sandman's cool. They kind of were just like, Sandman and the Enforcers teamed up, and I'm like, when? Why? What? Like, how?
I guess they're all kind of like knuckleheads.
I guess, but seems like a weird...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was kind of like... So I read the Sinister Six issue last night, and today I read the other 4.
Mm-hmm.
By this issue, I was like, I am totally done with the Human Torch right now.
Yeah.
And why are the Enforcers here?
I mean, I agree. The reason I like this issue is because it's him, like, of the arc of these 5, where it was him screwing up and, like, losing his reputation and all that, this is him kind of redeeming himself. This is, like, the after last issue being like, all right, I'm Spider-Man. This is the issue where he's in it, and he's like, I'm here to save the day, and he gets his win, and JJ is mad again.
I will say, I like everything other than, like, the kind of battles they had with, when the Human Torch back in the issue again. It's just, and, like I said, maybe I'm being crotchety.
Yeah, it was like Human Torch fighting the Enforcers, don't really care. I liked how Sandman did beat him, though. It was interesting, but really, yeah, the parts that I cared about was definitely Peter and him kind of being the hero again. I think he's kind of rebounded from how poorly the last few issues have gone for him. And then he meets Ned, and he's super chill with him. Like, he's super respectful to Betty, so we love a respectful man.
Ned Leeds, first, I guess, not first appearance of Ned Leeds.
First full,
I guess you could say. First full appearance of
first
Ned
time
Leeds.
he's named, I guess.
Right, which is very cool. Obviously, he plays a big part in a couple next decades worth of issues.
Obviously very different than the MCU version of Ned Leeds.
Yes, very different.
Where Ned Leeds in the MCU is obviously based off of Miles' best friend Genki.
I don't know why they used to name Genki, I guess.
But yeah, I don't know.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah, but this is a very different Ned Leeds. So if you've never read the comic books, you've only seen the movies, this is not the Ned you know. This is a white guy, journalist, working at the Daily Bugle. Of course, all the characters are white back then, so, not great, but yeah, not much to say about Ned Leeds. He's just a nice guy who's, him and Betty are hitting it off.
So he works at the Daily Bugle as well. I know who Ned Leeds is, but for whatever reason, I never grasped my hands around his. I never really read these early issues. I never read his first appearances, so I know with the whole Hobgoblin stuff, but at the same time, I thought he was always just kind of one of Peter's pals.
Yeah, no, he works at the Daily Bugle. Him and Betty start dating. I'm pretty sure they stay together for a while. So I think Betty and Peter are officially over. I think she's with Ned now. So. But
they're over. He's still got a couple girls going after him, Peter.
He does, yeah. He's not
propositions.
He's not struggling.
At least, Betty's the one he loves. So.
That's one thing the movies have not gotten right, man. You look at Tom Holland Peter, and he is like struggling to like even talk to his crush, but like back in the comics, the ladies were throwing themselves at him.
A player, straight up. He's
Straight
really
up.
a player.
Literally, yeah. He's like, oh, you don't want to date me? Well, I'll call this other girl.
Call someone else.
Yeah. I got girls on girls on girls for days.
And then he's like, I don't want the blind date because she's probably ugly.
Yeah. This guy has standards.
Yep.
High standards.
Like, I don't know what that Watson girl looks like, but
Probably ugly.
probably ugly.
But JJ, grumpy as usual. Sandman, kind of playing him with the villains. I love how Spider-Man comes back and torments JJ some more. He's like, I'm back! And JJ's getting mad. So that's where it seems like Spider-Man's just in higher spirits this issue, and I enjoy that.
No, he's really like revved up from, I think, the end of the last issue, which we talked about, obviously.
Yeah.
Spider-Man literally goes back to JJ and he's like, "Hey, Smiley, did you know I was back?"
Yeah. I love that.
That's so great. So we see that panel with the actual swinging Spider-Man on page 13.
Yep.
The classic one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Spider-Man. Classic. That animated show, when did that come out? Because that must have been like
1960s.
Spider-Man animated show, 1960s. I want to find out if it came out like same time as this, because maybe that panel was like right 1967. That's when this came out in 19. Where is it?
65, 64.
Issue 19 came out in 1964. So yeah, it was a couple years later. They had the animated show. That's crazy.
And they love to use that little art piece from Swain.
Yeah.
So the Human Torch, in all his glory, gets captured by the Enforcers and Sandman.
Yeah. So, okay. So, one thing I'm remembering as I'm looking at these panels, specifically if you look at, like, when he first fights the Enforcers, page 12 is a good example. When I said Steve Ditko's art is getting better, you remember we were roasting the way he was drawing Spider-Man, like, clinging to walls and the poses. But you look at, like, page 12, almost every panel, like, these are some really good poses, and the art is really good.
Like, especially when he's like, "Hey, Smiley," like the way he's like contorted, like
he's actually like sticking to the wall. Yeah, like his anatomy looks correct. Even on page 13, bottom right panel, like the anatomy actually looks good. So I feel like Steve Ditko's definitely leveled up his art a little bit with the anatomy of.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Like this is like peak Steve Ditko, like it is, or prime Steve Ditko, I should say.
Yeah, yeah.
Just awesome artwork.
Yeah. Now, Spider-Man, as smart as he is, sees this tank with Human Torch in it, with a bunch of sand on top of it.
Yeah.
And doesn't for a second. Which, first of all, he fights the Enforcers earlier, and then he shows up here and he's like, Sandman and the Enforcers. When did he find out that Sandman was involved at all?
See, I don't know. I mean, how did he know to go here again?
He talked to a crook on the street.
Oh, that's right. He got a crook to talk. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's another thing where they kind of just glossed over that fact and just was like, just make him know.
So he figured it out, yeah.
Or did he not, man? You're making me go crazy.
Huh?
For whatever reason, I feel like I remember him saying something that like, oh.
I mean, the guy he interrogated was like, I need to warn Sandman, but he didn't say that.
Yeah, no, so I don't think Spider-Man knew.
But he starts fighting with Sandman and the Enforcers. I agree with you. I'm kind of over the Enforcers at this point. I liked them in issue 10 a lot more than I thought I would. But I'm kind of sick of it. Oh, he got lassoed. Oh, just kidding. He jumped out of the lasso. Oh, Ox is super strong, but Spider-Man's stronger. Like,
here comes the little shit.
Yeah. Oh, he's going to throw Montana. You know, it's whatever. Seeing Sandman's cool, but this is definitely not Sandman's best appearance. And then Spider-Man, of course, frees Human Torch, and he helps him fight and get them all.
I did like, again, I feel like the Enforcers and Sandman are a bit of knuckleheads, but they had a good plan in terms of having a cage for the Human Torch with just enough oxygen for him to breathe, but not enough for him to flame on.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool.
That seems a little too smart for Sandman, but...
And the Enforcers, too. Again, I think they're just a bunch of knuckleheads.
Yeah, but, I mean, hey,
the big man ain't around.
But I do love... Excuse me. I do love Spider-Man accidentally webbing Johnny, and they like get tangled up. Like they're not good at working together at all.
They were for a second, and Spider-Man was like, I think we're working pretty well, and then, or no,
Human Torch, because Human Torch is
Torch said that.
trying to befriend him.
Right, Human Torch said that, and then Peter was like, bite your tongue, hothead.
Yeah, does not play well with others. But Sandman actually ends up getting apprehended by the police, which is interesting.
He was too weak to pretty much get away, so he had to surrender.
So I guess his energy does affect his ability to shift his molecules. Yes, so that's a little bit of new information about how his powers work.
He gets apprehended, probably going to break out in about the next issue.
Yeah, he'll be out of jail in no time. And then to end the issue, there's this mysterious new character who's tailing Peter Parker, and someone has hired him to do that. Now, I'm pretty sure I know who the secret person who hired him is. Confused why he would have him tailing Peter Parker. And I feel like they want you to think it's the Green Goblin.
So, I actually didn't, reading this issue, know who it was, and it was really bothering me, so I just skimmed through the next issue, and obviously then I found out who it was. Like, I didn't read anything, I just, was looking for the guy in that suit.
Yeah.
And then I probably can guess why he's looking for... I didn't look at that part, I just remembered, I, figured out who this was.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna guess it's because of the amazing pictures that, in this issue, he was able to take of Spider-Man, so he probably wants to get some knowledge on that.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I kind of spoiled the fact.
I'm interested to see. Well, obviously I know who it is, but I'm interested to see how that, because I've never read issue 20, so I have no clue how that actually goes down.
I love the Scorpion,
but obviously I'm familiar with the origin of the Scorpion and who that would be connected to. But I feel like, I felt like when I was reading this, they wanted you to think that the shadowed figure is the Green Goblin.
No, I think so too.
Because that's the only other person you don't know.
Right.
Which, once it's revealed who this guy is, that would even further make me suspect that J. Jonah is the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Especially because he's been losing his freaking mind the last 5 issues, so, he's kind of crazy enough to do it. I guess JJ was there when he fought the Green Goblin, though. At issue 17.
I guess you're right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that theory's dead. I would have thought that for, a few issues.
Crack the code. So who else do you think it is, then?
Oh, man, Ned Leeds?
Maybe.
This random guy who showed up out of nowhere. I don't know. But, who knows? But, yeah, I agree. This issue is definitely a 4 or 5 out of 10. It's not anything great. Mostly filler.
I think issue 1 through 15 were boom, first appearance, boom, first appearance, boom, first appearance, boom, first appearance, boom, second appearance, yada, yada, yada. This is the point where, from now until the most current issue, we will not have anything like 1 through 15 again.
Yeah.
It will be, obviously there's very, very important first appearances, from now until the newer issues.
And give it a month or two and we'll be at the John Romita era.
Exactly, and there
which I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yes, some new villains like the Rhino and stuff like that come in. And again, next issue is issue 20, but there's going to be a lot of reappearances of people. Some good and some probably are going to be like this issue where it's like I'm kind of bored.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that because I bought my 19 back in the day, and I remember reading it and thinking this is kind of boring, because I hadn't read any of the classic Stan Lee books, and this was actually I think the first one I ever read, and it really suffers from what I think the old Spider-Man books do, which is just a lot of narration, a lot of boring action, and it's it's the comics of the time. You can't expect much more, but I think it just doesn't live up as well as some of the other ones.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying, but like I was saying, think about when we're at issue 243 or 240 to 245 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a bunch of, we could have 5 just back issues that we're gonna review in an episode. And so I think from now on.
Well, I'm looking forward to that though, because we'll be able to actually really see the connected story. And
I never read those. I read some, but I haven't read
most of them.
232,
Yeah, it'll definitely. I'm actually looking forward to that because I think that'll be when you really start to see some better stories.
I'm looking forward to it, but we're also going to have some issues like this where it's just kind of alright, I'm kind of bored.
A little bit, yeah. But so next episode on Webheads, next week we will have issue number 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. Which issue are you the most? Oh, well, I said mine already. What was your favorite issue this week?
18. It's got to be 17, but I'm like so biased. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
So I'll say other than 17, it was definitely 18.
Okay, I would agree. I think those two were the highlights. But which issue next week are you most looking forward to?
I would have to look at, because again, we're getting to the point where I don't necessarily know every single issue by heart. Like I know 22. Kind of excited to read 22 because that was my first early like that was my first Steve Ditko book.
Okay.
I don't have it anymore. I traded it, I think, in a trade with
Lee Kirby Ditko Comics, yeah.
to get one of the books I have now. So I'm kind of interested to read that again because I think I read it or skimmed or probably read the action parts when I was a kid. So I'm a little bit excited to read that. But I love the Green Goblin moving forward because you see a little bit more of his motives. So I'm excited for issue 23.
Yeah, 23.
And then issue.
I'm obviously
20.
looking forward to 23 because Green Goblin. I would have to say I'm most looking forward to issue 24.
I don't even know.
That is one of my favorite covers of all time. It's the blue background Spider-Man with his head on his hand, and there's like an apparition of Vulture and Sandman. It says Spider-Man goes mad. I'm pretty sure. I mean, if I were guessing, I think it'll be Mysterio, but it's definitely a cooler Mysterio book. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
I'm really looking forward to issue 20 again because I love the Scorpion. I think he has an awesome origin story. I think it's pretty cool. I love issue 23 because the tag of the Goblin and the Gangsters is probably my favorite thing to ever exist. It is actually, the splash page is my my home screen on my phone. Because I don't know, I love the Goblin and the Gangsters. It's just such a great little tag.
The Goblin and the Gangsters.
It's pretty sick, so I'm excited for that. Man, it's actually kind of hard. I would say it's tied between 20 and 23.
Okay. So we'll see next week if 22 lived up to your expectations. If 20, I'm honestly not looking forward to 20 that much. I know this is an unpopular opinion. I've never been a huge fan of Scorpion personally.
Okay.
So I'm not really that looking forward to it. I mean, obviously I'm gonna get an issue 20 one day, but like it's not really something I'm like desperate to get because it's never excited me really.
I really like Scorpion, so I'm very excited.
We'll see. I mean, maybe this will change my mind. I mean, I've completely 180'd on Sandman because of issue 4, so maybe this will change my opinion.
I would like to say something that I forgot to mention at the very top of this episode, which is going back to issue 16 on the page. It says, "Warning. If you don't say this is one of the greatest issues you've ever read, we may never talk to you again." And I'm going to say this. I know for a fact that our next podcast, episode 5, will be the best podcast you ever listened to in your whole entire life. And if you disagree,
we may never speak to you ever again.
I'll never talk to you again.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows.
Big facts. Well, I think that's a perfect note to cap it off here. So we will see you guys next week, next Monday.
Yes.
We're going
the greatest podcast episode you've ever seen.
The greatest podcast episode you've ever seen in your life. I will hopefully not be sick that time. So
me too. Who knows? In a week.
Yeah, maybe he'll have had it. I don't know. We'll be here. All right, we'll be here. But
I'll have the studs next week.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned for more sickness. Hope everyone watching and listening is healthy and well. Everyone, happy New Year. Stay safe. Be careful because everyone is catching this COVID thing. So I am gonna go sleep now. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will see you guys next week with episode 5 of Webheads Comic Club.